Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it very, very much. The purpose of this meeting is for the selection committee to gather input from the public, which you all are, I hope, on what the committee should consider in the selection of an architect for the project. We're in the process of selecting, you might want to close those doors here. We're in the process, the subcommittee is in the process of looking at architectural firms, but for our meeting that we're going to set up for June 18th at the library, starting at 6 o'clock, which you are invited to come to, we're going to be hopefully interviewing 5 architects. But again, as I said, the purpose of this meeting is to gather from you what you'd like to see us ask the architects. So I would like to know, starting with who wants to say what first? It's a public meeting, so here, let's hear you. You're on, sir. Give us your name and...
My name is Mark Ornstein, 82 Old Meadow Plain Road. And just a comment. In some of the research that I was doing primarily for a parking facility, came across a senior center, Laguna Beach, California. And you may want to do a lookup on that. It is a community center. Part of it is reserved for seniors, part of it is a common area, and part of it is a community area that's available to the seniors during the day. But if you do a search on Laguna Beach Senior Center, maybe at the bottom of the first page or the second page, you'll see the developer group, when they're advertising themselves. Be just nice to read through that and get a feeling for the kinds of issues they
ran into.
They should get. The only other comment I have is you want to make sure, I think technically the architects understand the technical business. I think it's foolish at this point to put in a training center for technology, but to have Wi-Fi ubiquitous through the area. The reason I say I think it's foolish, the library's got a great center already for training. But for actually using iPads or other devices, smartphones, I think you certainly want to make sure that Wi-Fi
That's an issue. You're talking about a purpose room, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Now, again, we can't decide what rooms are going to go in yet. They'll come out of in fact, they hired what do I call them? Program manager to go through all those programs and look and see what they should put into this facility, which would include, again, a senior community center. So what will go, whether they have an iPad room, for lack of a better word, a community room or not, we don't know. That's what they're going to study and talk to they're going to talk to architects. They're going to talk to the staff. They're going to talk to seniors. They're going to do all kinds of things. He's been doing this for years, so he's going to be well qualified. He comes on within the next month, I guess, to start with us. So that will come out. We'll get that information out also as he gets to gather information. But thank you for that information. That Laguna Beach one sounds interesting. I'll look that up. Anyone else?
I think we should all go visit the
I think the town should provide us with transportation.
Absolutely.
We did that once already. As you all know, we visited 5 different senior centers in the general locality. We went to Southwick, we went to Enfield, we went to Glastonbury, we went to Suffield, and one way out there in east side. I forgot what all, but the committee, there were about 8 of us that went to them and visited them, and it was very interesting to see what community centers were doing in different towns. And I think the vote of the favorite one came out at Southwick. And surprisingly enough, we learned that people from Simsbury actually are members of the Southwick Senior Center, which really surprised us. But it wasn't 1 or 2, it was quite a few, which really surprised us. Again, it's your floor, please, not mine. Go ahead.
This may be slightly off point in terms of if the topic before the House is about hiring an architect.
Yeah.
But I've never quite understood, and maybe you can give me a 25-word answer, why this is a senior center, which sounds so exclusive and narrow, as opposed to a community center.
No, this committee is called the Senior Community Center Architectural Selection Committee. We're going to be looking at an architect that has experience in design of a senior community center, which will include whole kinds of issues versus just senior center issues.
I'd love to see you drop the name senior. There isn't a senior alive who likes being called a senior, speaking as a senior. Community center encompasses everybody.
Well, that's something you can bring up to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah. All right.
There's one sitting behind you.
No, not her.
No, look the other way. There you go.
Just got elected, Mark.
No, but seriously, you know, that's interesting you say that, and that's probably why the word community got added in, because we're hearing more and more that people don't want to call it the senior center, they would rather call it a community center. And that's an issue that has to come before the Board of Selectmen's got to make that decision of what a name of a facility is.
As
That's
a
good.
community center, I would love to see it being considered to include in the architectural design, spaces to accommodate all kinds of community-related events, from children's areas to meeting rooms to a room big enough to accommodate exercise and square dancing and things that would be separate from an auditorium, a proper auditorium, which there isn't really one of in town. Serves its best purpose, and the high school is the only other auditorium in town that can accommodate a crowd of any size. I'd love to see a proper theater.
Do you think more seniors would attend if it was called just a community center and not a senior community
Yes,
center?
I do.
Really?
Yes, I do.
I've heard that too.
It's off-putting.
They wouldn't be concerned about having the community come in and take over the spaces?
I'm pretty sure, as a senior, I consider myself part of the community without
Oh, yeah, that's true.
excluding
Good
or
point.
narrowing it to an age range.
You could designate senior sections.
Within the facility.
Right.
And that's why I said take a look at
That
the
a little bit. Yeah, and that's basically, I think, as we looked around, a couple of us went up to these other towns, that they were open, they were big buildings, and the community was invited to use them as they needed. I mean, they call, like you call here, I want to have a meeting in your building, do you have room that night or whatever? And the talk has been for this facility, basically, is to have a large, when we talk, and we've been talking about using the, and I guess I should really say this, our consideration right now is adding on to the PAC facility, okay? Well, the PAC is saying, we like to have something here, but we like to have a nice big room, so when we have our stages, we can have a community, the actors or whoever come into this room and be able to eat, relax, so on and so forth, as well as when they're not there, that the seniors can use it for a dinner, dance, whatever. Or the public wants to use it for some kind of a meeting in a large room, there's a facility there for it. So that thought is there to be more of a community center than a senior center. And maybe we should just call it a community center, not a senior center, but that's a Board of Selectmen decision. But she has it.
I know, and this is.
We'll keep reminding her. We'll keep reminding her.
We need another survey to figure out what the name is.
Yes, go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Either one.
I'm director over,
Leave
my
your
name
name, leave your name.
Tony Juanino. I'm director over at Belden Forest Court on Firetown Road. There's 44 units over there. It's all independent living. We do several trips to the senior center. One of their big issues is, and you talked about using that room for dining, is the size. There's, on a monthly basis, they end up getting put on a wait list for that. So I'm sure within all your numbers, obviously bigger is better, but it gets a little frustrating to them because it's month after month. And
That's one of the complaints.
it's basically who gets there first to sign up. But I'd just like to throw that
Yeah,
out.
now, we're aware that they can only seat, I think it was 50 or so, and they sure 100 come to it, as an example. But I think the numbers are different, but I'm just throwing that in the
Yeah.
So we're well aware of that, but that's one of the issues that we'll bring up when we select our architect, as far as going through with our program manager, director, how big this thing should be. And that's part of it, but, so, and I guess the question, what we're trying to find here is, what would you like to see the architect, if you were going to select an architect, what would you ask them?
what
sure.
kind of experience they've had building similar facilities,
Okay, yep, all right, good
and
question.
with what kind of results.
Yep, good, okay, Cheryl?
Cheryl Cook. I would, I had seen some plans from when they built the PAC facility, the state, and they actually had some plans for an extension of that facility, which included a green room. And so I pulled out some of the old plans because I was curious to see what it might look like attached to the back of the PAC. And it was very ugly, and I don't think it was very aesthetically pleasing at all. And I would rather see something that's a little more, designed and
Aesthetic.
more aesthetically pleasing than just a box added on to the back of the PAC. So I would look for somebody who has a little imagination for, a community center that blends in with the rest of the community activities that are there already. We have a boundless playground, we have the dog park, we have a lot of things happen down there. And I think I would want to see something that fits more seamlessly into the environment that's there now. Something that's open to the environmental, assets that we have behind it, so that you could enjoy like a walking path or large windows in the back to see, the wildlife area.
Deck on the roof.
Yeah, a walking area, maybe, more board, we have a couple of boardwalks there now. But I think, something outside of just the box of the building, to
That would
make
be
it fit
more,
into the.
that would be more directed to, once we select that architect, once we see that he has qualifications of designing, he has designed community centers in the past, have designed community centers that have been lacked onto another facility, experience of working within a floodplain zone,
Right.
working within all our exterior downtown area. Once we select an architect, then we sit down and come back with, okay, now we selected you, Mr. Jones. We want to see a building that has windows in the back, we want to see, have 18 rooms, we want to see it have a swimming pool, I'm being facetious. We want to see it has this, we want to see it has that, and then for him to design it. So that question would come after we made a
Well, no,
selection.
I think before you select somebody, you have to
Okay.
see if they have the
Well, their experience, yeah,
imagination
do they have the
to
experience?
make a
Yeah.
building that's going to
Yeah,
be.
do they have the experience?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not somebody who's just built a standalone box of
Totally
a
agree.
senior center. I don't think that's what we're looking for.
No, totally agree. Mary Lou?
It may turn out that you cannot connect
It may turn out that
those
way.
two
Yeah, we
places.
don't know.
But they're going to be near each
Are we
other.
going to give the architect the opportunity to express that opinion
Right.
Yes.
and perhaps select another spot, like further back on the high.
Oh, further on that site, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
That is not even an imaginatively architecturally grand building. If you just go and look at that spot and where it would have to be to connect in any clever way to the path.
Yeah, well, we have to be very,
I don't think the senior center, community center should be subject to its being part of the pack.
Well, I
It's
don't
the
mean part of it.
senior
I want it to look
It's the senior
cohesive.
center's time. The PAC's interests could probably be served fairly reasonably with a square building of their own.
well, our job isn't that. Our job is to design.
Yeah, but
come
I
up
don't
with-
want
I hear what you're saying,
to.
but our job, again, this committee's job is to select an architect, go through a senior community center on the PAC facility. Does it have to be attached to the stage? No. It's going to be on that site somewhere, yes. Does it have to be separate? No. But that's our job, is to do it there and there only. That's what this committee is charged with doing.
But Dick, the PAC now being a private 501c3
Yep.
and not owned by the town, I don't think you'd be able, be able to attach a town building to a not-for-profit, would you?
We're told we can, and I guess that's
I
been
think
worked
you
out
can,
with Pat.
actually.
Okay.
Cheryl?
We can do that.
Yeah, I think that the stage is owned by the town, it's not owned by.
Yeah, I think we
PAC.
can attach to that.
Oh, the building
It is.
itself, the stage
It is.
itself is owned by
It
the
is,
town?
but I think
It's
it's
just run by
right.
the 501c.
Run
They're
by-
like a management.
They're management,
Right,
they're run, it's run by a 501c, but they don't own it.
The town still owns the
Yes.
property?
The town owns the
Town
property.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I agree with Dick, though, that, you know, you have to have an open mind. You don't necessarily have to assume it's gonna be a building attached to the existing
Right.
PAC center. I think you gotta let the architect come up with
Yeah.
various concepts, you know, and possibly there's some facilities that are attached and some are not, and maybe the ones that are attached don't get built as part of the senior center.
Right.
But it's planned into the site development so that it all works together in the future.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Arlene Zipilli, and I'm part of the Aging and Disabilities Commission. And I'm just curious as to something you mentioned a little bit before, that PAC would have use of that facility. So whose needs would supersede the other? If some great, like
Cooperation.
Willie Nelson came, is he gonna take it over and throw the community out if they are planning an event?
I, as a member of the selection committee of an architect, can't really answer that question. When you have two selectmen sitting over here in the corner, you might want to throw it to them.
I'll answer that, actually. Hey, how are you guys?
Hey, Lisa.
It's nice to see everyone I know here. Wow. What we're doing right now is evaluating that, because we don't know the answer. What the Board of Selectmen voted was to fully explore doing a separate senior center, independent standing senior center at the Performing Arts Center. Let us know if there are compatible uses. Can it be done, given what the PAC needs and what the seniors need? Will it work with the environment? We're in the process of evaluating that. So we're doing wetlands testing to make sure, because we don't want to build it there, we're going to destroy the Blue Heron Rookery. So can you, and stuff like that. So can I tell you the answers to that? No. That's exactly what we're in the process of evaluating. We are working to hire a consultant to bring in a programming consultant, an expert in the field, actually a nationally recognized expert, because throughout these 4 years, we've actually never consulted with an expert on senior center programming. So we're bringing someone in to evaluate what programs we have now, what programs we're going to need over the next 30 years, because we're building this not just for today's seniors, but in anticipation that this building will be here for at least 100 years. And once we get that information, we're going to say to them, okay, what space do we need to accomplish the needs? Because really we're on a road trip, and the road trip is to meet the needs of our seniors. Right now, we think the path is through the Performing Arts Center. We don't know that for sure. We're doing the evaluation. As we get new information, are we going to ignore it? I'm not. Cheryl's not. We're going to incorporate that information. If we need to adjust our path, we will, based on the new information we get. So with that, those are the processes we're in right now. We are not, you should know that this board, I think, has been very open to reacting to facts and not ideology. So if we get information that changes the way we think, we'll absorb it. That's what this journey is about. And the journey is not about a building. The journey is about meeting the needs of our seniors. Right now, we're exploring whether we can do that at the Performing Arts Center site, but we want to meet the needs of our seniors and also our community and the environment, make sure there's enough parking. Don't want to totally throw out the PAC. Want to see if that's compatible. If it's not, then our journey may shift. So that's sort of how I think about it. Does that make sense to folks?
Yeah, I have another question though. Don't sit down. I'm just curious because I've been on the board on the commission for a while now, and we've had study after study after study, and I was just wondering how many more studies do you think we're going to be having?
What study have you done? Because this is the first time we'll be bringing in a professional, someone who has.
So who were all those other people?
We had architects, every.
Yeah, you did have
a bunch of others that came in and
To
surveyed.
answer your question, basically what we have is, we have been issued, the Public Building Committee was issued many, many years ago, to look into a senior center, to look at renovations to the Eno to establish a senior community center. With that, they said also look at least 4 other sites of which a senior community center could be located.
Sure.
The Public Building Committee, in fact, did that. They got a price on doing the Eno over and adding to it and doing this and adding to it. They looked at Stratton Brook and Bushy Hill Road. We looked at Andy's Market. We looked at up at Holloway's, up across the street from Holloway's. I mean, we looked at about, Mary Lou, what, 6, 7 sites? Forgot how many, but 6 or 7 sites. And everyone said, okay, and brought it back to the Eno, and then when the Eno price got up so high and everyone's got feeling, well, the Eno is a historic center, we really don't want to add to it, we don't, and it can't do parking, even if you put a parking deck back there, it's not going to solve the problem, let's look at something else. And that's when the board decided, let's look at the PAC site, for lack of a better word, I'm going to call it the PAC site. Let's look at the PAC site to see what you can do there. So this committee here right now is focused on just one area, and that is the site at the PAC site. Yes, sir.
Brian Zipilli. I guess I was just going to add something to what Cheryl was talking about. You know, when you look at hiring an architect, they all have portfolios. They all have dossiers of what they've done. They all have references that they provide. So between, you know, the experience they've had and the history they've had, not only designing buildings, but actually executing the delivery of the building, those are the kind of things that you should take into account. And looking at the portfolio, see the design, how it fits into the landscape and the topography, and all that is something that, you know, is what those architects are supposed to do. So
And again,
I just wanted to add to what Cheryl was talking about.
We'll take your references here. We're going to this committee will then sit down and interview architects on the 18th at the library. It's open to the public. You're all welcome to come. It'll start at 6 o'clock. Please be there. And you'll be able to throw some stuff out there in front of architect at the start. You're not going to be able to do it in front of all the 5 architects we're interviewing, okay? But we are interviewing 5. At that point, once we select an architect, we will then ask for another public inference meeting, which will have the architect come sit here instead of me, and you can go and talk to that architect direct with ideas, thoughts. But that way, we want to get the public as much involved as possible.
Sure.
And so we're going to do that. So you've had 3 opportunities for the public to come out and say something. That's why you're here.
Was there an RFP to select
Yes.
5, so down select them?
Yes, and the RFP went through, give us your experience in doing senior centers, tell us who you're going to have on staff, tell us who you're going to have for other engineers, mechanical, electrical, site, so on and so forth. Show us what senior centers you've done in the past. What else?
Environmental
Environmental sensitivity.
I dealt with that in
experience.
terms of design.
Okay.
So we asked them all the questions in our RFP that we know are going to affect us here.
Right.
And this committee has shortlisted, and I can't unfortunately tell you who they are at this
Sure.
point, but they did shortlist 5, and the interviews are being set up right now for the 18th, and it's going to be 45 minutes approximately of each one of them, of which the committee will let them tell us what they can do, show us basically what they showed us in their booklets, and then we will then be able to ask them questions. That's why we're asking you, what kind of questions should we ask them? We will then ask questions of them, and at that point, after the 5 have gone through, the committee will then bring it down to who's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sure.
And the first one will bring in for, again, a lot of things to be considered, fee, experience, so on and so forth. And then that will be negotiated, and we'll go and bring it back to you folks to sit down and talk to them.
Okay.
And that's our procedure at this point, which I think is wide open to you, the public.
Part of the RFP, do you expect that they're going to also not only ask for public input, but, you know, is there going to be some kind of questionnaire again?
That's
or
what we're
what's
going
the
to
process?
do. What we're going to do, again, in reference to what we've asked, they don't know that we're going to ask them to come and sit down right away up front with you folks. That's going to be a special meeting that this meeting does. But once they get into the design, once they get into the process, in their process, they're going to have open meetings, I assume, for lack of a better word, the senior center with the seniors, to have them throw their input, as they will probably with the PAC, as they will with town, as they will with the subcommittee. So that'll be open. There'll be plenty, hopefully, in our RFP, we said that, to have a lot of public input and information. So you will have opportunities throughout the design. You may get halfway through something and say, hey, geez, you know, you got a red roof over there, forget it, should be blue. I'm being facetious, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
You might be able to pick some things out even before they finish. So, no, we're going to try to keep it open as much as possible. And that basically, I look back over to Cheryl, that's basically what the Board of Selectmen asked this committee to do, is keep it open to the public as much as possible. And we intend to do that as much as possible. Again, the architect can say, yes, I'm not going to, but we're going to tell the architect what to do, not tell us what to do. So, but again, we're going to have to work in cooperation with everybody. Everybody's going to have to kind of work together. Even with PAC, we're going to have to sit down with PAC in a meeting and say, wait a minute, guys, what is it you'd like to see here as well as what we'd like to see here. So it's gonna be open. I'm gonna try to keep it open as possible. I look to my friend to the right here, these people are the ones who are gonna suffer the worst, the staff, because they have a lot to do, and there's a lot more than what we look at it. You think it's easy, it's not that easy. Even going through the architect selection, we called architects right away to get some kind of idea when they're available. Well, out of the 5 right now, we're sitting negotiating with the one that said he can't make it on the 18th. Come on. I mean, so these are the kinds of things that they go through that we think are easy and simple. They're not that easy and simple, so bear with us, we're doing the best we can.
No, it's okay. I can also foresee an operating agreement between the PAC.
I think, yeah, that's town, yeah,
And the community.
yes.
So that everyone has the answers as to, you know.
And
what
I
happens.
think schedules are gonna be part of that whole
Right.
agreement.
And it should be.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Diane Phillips. I wonder if there's a deadline set for the wetlands and environmental reports. Is that going to be in progress before?
That's gonna be in progress before the architectural starts because
It's already ongoing.
it's ongoing right
That's
now.
when, no, I mean, when is it due?
It should be due
Is it
within the next
before-
couple
Oh, I
weeks.
was gonna say, it's almost done.
Next
The
couple
final
weeks.
report.
Should be done in the next couple of weeks, so we'll know that you can't build to the left because it's wetlands, or you can't go
Yeah.
off to the north because it's swamp, or you can't do this because it's
Right.
that. We're gonna have those answers within a couple weeks.
Before the architect designs some
Yes.
type of
Oh, yeah,
plan.
yeah.
That was the
Before we
first
finish,
thing.
yeah.
And
Yes.
the pack
Yep.
area.
Yep. Yep.
In all fairness, though, the information we're gonna get is not gonna tell us too much of what can
Can be
be,
built.
because there is potential that we could encroach into sensitive areas, you know, with mitigation. So until we get the design professional on board, we're not gonna do the interpretation of the data, you know, because we need to, again, keep an open mind, because we don't wanna assume we can't do things when possibly we can. So,
And vice
again,
versa.
the information is going to be prepared, it'll be available, but we're not going to interpret it professionally until, again, we get all eyes on it and they can add hopefully to the expertise.
And that's one of the questions that we have on our list to ask the architect. Have you gone through this type of procedure before? And that's going to hopefully be one of the issues of our selection. Have they done geographical locations of wetlands, so on and so forth? And if they haven't, well, that's up to the committee. But that's one of the questions that we'll be definitely asking the architect. Chauffeur. And they may bring a consultant on their own as part of their team to just do that. And one has said that basically in their information to us. Anything else? Yes, sir.
On the Vic Bible, on the 18th, you're going to have these interviews for the architect. Did I understand your comment that most likely people, it's open to the public, so if I want to sit there for 4.5 hours, I could sit there and listen?
Bring your lunch, bring something for us to eat.
Dinner, whatever.
Yes, you can, whatever you want to bring.
Is that a
But be
time
quiet.
in which there's public input available?
No, unfortunately, we'll talk about that once we get into it. If there's, 3 or 4 people out there and somebody wants to ask a 2-minute question and we have a few minutes left, and when the Public Building Committee is asking those questions, I might say, because how much short of me, I might say, is there anybody out there that'd like to make a comment to the architect? We'll try it, but technically and legally, this is what we're doing here.
Is there any priority to the architects? I know you're selecting them. Is there any priority into the time of their appearance?
Alphabetical.
One alphabetical.
Alphabetical.
Yeah. No, nobody selected it. I wasn't saying he goes first, he goes last. And even in that case, I said we have one now. We may have to negotiate a time to flip somebody around. Let's just say he came in at 6 o'clock and he's now saying, I can't be there that night. And we're saying, well, wait a minute. We're going to interview that night only. If you want to be considered, you got to be there that night. What time can you be there? Well, I can be there at 7. Well, so we might take the person that was on the 7 and flip that person to 6. So, to answer your question, right now it's alphabetical, but that could change.
That's 45 minutes per architect.
20-minute presentation, 10 minutes of questions, and then 15-minute gap for setup.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying. We might have a few minutes to say to you, if you have a question, ask it.
They can give a good answer, 45 minutes. I've been on public building for 27 years, and when these come in and they're 45 minutes, they give you a good idea. Beforehand, you get a great big book like this, on their work and on their thoughts and on their background. The members of the committee.
Yes.
As part of the RFP process, the invitation to put the bid out, did your information to them include like a long list of, these are the kinds of things that will go on in this building that you will be designing?
Would you like to read the RFP?
I'd love to.
I don't have an extra copy, but it asked for, number one, to submit a book. This is the kind of book we get from them, by the
Yeah.
way. Okay? To submit the book, to tell us, if you want me, I'll very quickly go through it. Got it right here. We told them what the project was. We said, gave a project description saying that we recently selected the site of the senior community center to be served as community needs at several sites. You know how we've used, and now they selected the Simsbury, what we call the Simsbury Meadows site. The intent of the project is to propose, considering the future demographic space needs required for the project, plus develop plans and estimate costs for the project. The site is located in environmentally sensitive wetlands and habitat. It was formerly proximity to base flood elevations, designated a FEMA floodplain. It says, please review existing reports and documents available at the Senior Center, Performing Arts Center, review documents of the conditions, existing conditions, study existing access, review building codes, design construction schematic review, design development, jurisdictional review, construction documents, construction administration, render interior and exterior elevations, provide oversight of the owner's representatives. I mean, it goes on and on and on. It was quite a bit that was in our RFP that they have to respond to. And what we're asking, and maybe jumping ahead here a little bit, but what we're going to ask at the interview is that they give us in detail, which we already have in the book, okay, but we're going to ask them to present that night, is please give us a firm profile, i.e. size of the firm, who your key representatives, who your key individuals are going to be, who the administrators are going to be, list of proposed consultants you're going to use, and then we say, give us a proposed organization, team, and structure. Then say, identify a project team and what you have done. List senior community centers and performance arts similar projects your firm has done within the past 7 years. Okay, contact information, budget information, bid results, and final costs. You want to get a good scope of what they've done. Past performance data, including not limited to the adherence to project schedules. Were you on schedule? Project budget. Were you in within the town budget? Were you the number of change orders you have? And that's a big influence of the number of change orders you have in a project, because that can drive the cost up versus leaving the cost here. So we're asking, how many change orders do you have on that building you built down there in Southwick last week? Okay, so those are the kind of questions. Regulatory approvals. Were you required to, on any other project, what other projects did you have to go through regulatory approvals? Tell me that you did one in Timbuktu and you had to go through the wetlands. Okay, so these are the kinds of questions, and there's that we've already had in mind to ask them, but we opened this meeting up to see if there's anything else that you wanted to ask. And so our design, our selection process is to consider the relevant project experience, project with site development, experience working with government agencies and jurisdiction over the project, experience working with construction process and procedures, ability to comply to project requirements, i.e. FEMA, EAD, the whole bunch of them there, okay? Experience of set skills and demonstrated leadership and proposed project team and the quality of the proposal. I think we're asking them to propose and submit to us quite a bit that was in the RFP, written to them. So they have this in writing to them already. Hope I answered your question.
Then what are we doing here?
I'm sorry? Oh, no, again, we want to get the input, and this is,
But
answers your
they
question.
don't, that's all the stuff that you needed to know in order to choose an
In order
architect.
to
The rest
charge
comes
it.
later, but in terms of what's going to go on in this building and how many people is it going to serve on a daily basis, all those kinds of.
That will come basically from our new,
Things.
person they're bringing on board to study that. That will work
program
in hand,
itself.
once that's decided, we'll work in hand with the architect that we select to fill in these questions based on what he sees also.
And when is this program person?
They're already underway too.
Okay.
Yeah, they should be here within the next week,
Okay, yeah.
from what we understand. And they hopefully will have the first part of the study, for what I understand from a meeting earlier today, is, and Jeff helped me out here, but I believe the first part of their study will be completed by July 1st?
I think it was mid-July.
Mid-July,
Yeah.
mid-July, And then by August, they should be pretty well complete to start working with an architect, direct and direct.
Is there, I'm looking at both of you.
That's okay.
Is there any chance for the public to meet
Oh,
with
with
the
them, I
program
assume.
in person and or
Well,
provide input?
I
Or is
think
that
once
already been done?
they're meeting with our current senior center staff, social services staff, and Jeff, you could
Yeah, I
correct me on
don't
this.
think we've really come to the point where we've designed a public outreach or
Yeah.
a kind of a meeting plan.
I would highly recommend it.
How would that would work. But
Yeah.
certainly that's something I think they would.
Highly recommend.
would do.
I think you'd want that part of the study to be
I would
open to
hope
the
so.
public. Yeah.
Right.
I would think so.
So I think that's going to be part of the process,
think
but a lot of it is going to be, what do we do now? What do we need more of,
Right.
How many more people do we anticipate serving?
Yeah.
That type of stuff.
And again, as you know, there's a telephone survey that's just been completed. That is going to be part of his information that he gets as well. They surveyed 200 people and they got 5 answers saying, we don't want a senior center, and 25 people don't want a senior center, and saying 85 people said, no, we don't want a senior center, we want a community center. Okay, I'm just teasing, but I mean, there is a study that was out that I know the phone calls have been made, and that study should be available sometime probably within the next week.
Well, there were questions as part of the survey as to specific programming needs, would you go to the senior center for an exercise class, would you attend, a dinner or whatever, so there was questions in there that had to do with programming.
And that survey's been completed, correct?
Yes, that phone survey's been completed.
In the survey itself, will there be demographics as to how many people were contacted?
Yes.
How many people were of senior
Yes.
age?
Yes,
Yes,
I actually got a call, so,
I actually
You're
got it
not a
also.
senior.
well, but they're calling everybody.
So
It
they're
was kind of
calling-
interesting, because I got a call, and my 21-year-old daughter got a call. We got 2 different calls.
Did any of the seniors here get a call?
I got a call.
I did
Well,
not.
actually, I qualify as a senior based on all those numbers that,
And again, I have to be very frank with you, in reference to that, that's a hard thing to do on the phone. And Cheryl said they're gonna ask a lot, all those things that she said weren't always asked of everybody. So, they're gonna get different feelings. But what they're gonna do is they're gonna report that they called 400, just for lack of, okay, they called 400 people. Of that 400, 150 were under the age of 35, 250 were at the age of 35 to 55, and 55 and older were 80 people. And out of those answers, they got A, B, C, D in those categories. So to answer your question, yes, they will be categorized as by who they call. I
and
don't
they
have
asked
the
me
answer.
all those demographic, how old was I? What was my education level? How long had I lived in town? What was
Yep.
the, had I ever been to the senior center? And I said, well, that's kind of a trick question, because I have lots of times, but.
Is that going to be published on the town website?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, that should be done by the end of the week, actually. So.
Yeah, they're working on it, should be this week. Yes, Mary Lou?
One question that seems to have got lost in the shuffle is what will happen to Eno? Because when the senior center was first proposed, it being in a different place, there was a lot of conversation about would be the community center.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people have talked about, to give you a quick comment from what I've heard, okay, and again, this is not official, it's not, but it's off the record, it's coming through here, from a lot of people, okay? A lot of people do not want to see any additions to the Eno. The Eno is a historic preservation building, leave it alone. Now, what do you do there? Okay, there's plenty you can do there.
That's
Number
what I'm
one,
saying, it should be
number one,
addressed.
if you hear me out, please. Number one is, you have right here at the town hall, Simsbury Regional Probate Court. That used to be at the Eno. Move them back there. Good place for them. You've got the community, Simsbury Chamber of Commerce, that meets in the basement of a building. Give them space at the Eno. You've got the Main Street Partnership that has a one-room space up at the new Masonic Hall. Give them a room at the Eno. You got DAR that takes up more than half the space right now. But if you put those 4 facilities I just said in the Eno, you filled up what could be used, because, and I'm looking at somebody looking at me, staring me in the face hardly, is that the downstairs, Simsbury Community Television would like to have the whole downstairs, and they deserve it. They really do. What they're in right now, there's not enough room. If they had that downstairs, that would fulfill their needs. So, and then you can have a couple rooms down there, like the old court, what I call the old courtroom, by the way, was a court when I was young. The old courtroom could be held as an open public building, public meeting facility. If somebody wants to have a meeting, they can meet in there. And there might be another room upstairs. They have up on the 3rd floor, they have a couple of meeting rooms up there. You can leave those open for meetings. I know that the town committees, the Republican, Democrat town committees meet in those meeting rooms upstairs. So the facility can be used very, very heavily for a lot of things, other than a quote-unquote senior center. Yes, ma'am?
Are there restrictions on the historical building or that can never be changed?
No, not never. There are restrictions. There are restrictions inside, okay? We talked about adding on to the building, and when we came back with design, the first design on that, they went to historic facility, the State of Connecticut Historic Organization, and they said, no, you can't do that there. No, you can't make that this high. No, you can't do that there. But yeah, you can do this, and yeah, you can add on to the side if you do it this way. So yes, you can, but no, you can't.
Can you put a bathroom on the 2nd floor? Can you,
Some of the interior work you can do. A lot of the stuff that the historical society was concerned with was the facade. You can't change the front.
Can't do
We can't change some of the exterior
Exterior
elements,
windows in the side.
so
of
mostly
the building.
exterior?
No, even inside, because right now, for instance, you cannot,
Staircase, doorways.
We can change some of those, but we have to, use.
widen them and do, you
Yeah.
have to do them for reasons, for handicaps.
That was the
But
And
for
a lot of it
instance,
is accessibility.
That was the reason the whole place wasn't air conditioned.
Well, yeah. there
That's
was-
right.
Did it go?
and for instance, there has been some issues, that that the seniors and some other people that use, wanted to change some of the bathroom sizes, and they weren't allowed to do that.
Right.
Okay, so there are some other issues
There's
that
issues,
are more
but-
personal than.
Well, before, I appreciate all your ideas about how to use but none of that is official.
Oh, no.
And
I didn't say it was.
the Board of Selectmen has discussed the use of many times throughout this process, and it is our intention not to let
I
get
think it
forgotten
should be
in the
Hand in
in the
glove.
planning process. And we had actually discussed a second architect, that has, exclusively for the historic building site to do the improvements, which would make it ADA accessible so that everybody
Well, that's
can
a
use
different
it.
issue, yeah.
Needs access.
So that is
That's-
not off the table, that is.
That's going on right now.
Well, not,
The ADA walkway down this,
We are
there's things.
discussing with an architect right now
Yeah.
the possibility of improving the handicap accessibility
Right.
ramps to the
So,
lower level, not doing a full
Not the whole
ADA
thing.
accessibility study, but a lot of the outside, infrastructure, wasn't touched for the last 3 or 4 years because of all the planning going on for the senior center there. We didn't want to throw good money after bad, so to speak, and have to tear it out later.
Right.
So there is a limited study, I guess, that we're considering. We haven't moved forward with it, but to improve access to the lower level at a minimum.
And Mr. Roy is currently working with an architect to do just that. It does have to be, because it is an historic building, it will have to be approved by the state.
I was just saying
Historical
her that was
Preservation
concerned that the
Commission.
board was leaving, off the table. And
Okay.
I assured her that we are not.
Not really.
And in fact, we just did a walkthrough last week with I did a walkthrough with Mike Jennings.
Now, my question was, are we putting some community center of senior stuff in the new building that perhaps could be utilized in,
It's not, nothing's
like
off the
this lady
table.
suggested, another
I don't know,
auditorium?
That's still,
we don't know yet. I mean,
We're in the process of doing the, like I said, I
Well,
think
that's why I'm wondering why we're here,
because
this particular meeting.
well, because the way we can do our plans, one, you have to know what programming needs you need to meet, and then what space you need to meet it in. And then the other thing you need to do is have some concept of where you can put it. And that's where an architecture will help us.
Well, I think you should get your architecture going. You should have the results of the survey, both the land and the survey.
that's part of it.
And have a meeting. So you have
Oh, we'll have more, this is not the
This is
end.
not the first one, Mary.
There's gonna be more meetings.
You'll have plenty of input.
I mean,
we've only
this
had
is-
40.
we don't-
Well, here's the thing, people said last time when we went through the architectural process, they didn't feel like they had an input or a
Right.
voice, and so we're giving you the voice now.
right.
We want to make, we've got aging and disability here, we've got conservation, we've got building, I don't see design review or culture, park and recs, but they're included in this. So you're representatives.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and so we're trying to give more opportunities, because we all see the world from where we sit, and as we hear from people who sit in other seats, we get a broader understanding of the needs we need to meet.
Okay. Any other questions?
I use, I am a senior in town, but I'm also the president of the Theater Guild of Simsbury. We use Eno a lot.
Right.
We have our monthly board meetings there in one of the meeting rooms. We rehearse shows in the auditorium in the evenings, space, use not when available.
Right.
And we perform on the stage, and it's that, the auditorium in that building is a lovely, lovely spot, and that's what it was that's what it's for. You've got that stage, you've got limited but adequate
I used to go to the
space.
movies there.
There you go. I would hate to see it lost as that function. If you were going to repurpose interior buildings, or interior space to give it to other town groups that are currently living in a basement or justifiably need more space. That's my broader concern about sort of planning for the future, looking at the greatest number of things we could use these two spaces or more spaces for, and then narrowing it down, but not
Right.
limiting it.
That's part of the whole study eventually. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll call this session closed. Thank you very, very much, and believe me, all of you, you'll have many, many opportunities, as I said, once we can, the next one would be the 18th, you're welcome to come to that. It's your next open meeting. And then, once we select an architect, we'll have to sit down again. I can't come up with dates, I don't know when it will be yet, but it'll be sometime in July, August. We'll sit down in an open meeting with the architect, so you'll be able to see who it is and ask them any kind of questions you want and talk to them whatever you want to talk to them about. Okay?
Thank you
Thank you very, very much. We only have three of us here.